Did you set out to be a serious actor?
Yes, I did.
And what caused the transition?
I was recurrently, habitually paid to do comedy and found out I had a good time. You know, when you're starting off as, you know, I went to Northwestern University. I have a degree in communications, and I was classically trained, and I took ballet and did the Meisner technique, and an actor prepares, and I had a beard and I wore black and everything you want, you know, in a young actor. And I really wanted to be Hamlet, not just act Hamlet and share my misery with the world. But I wasn't actually enjoying it that much. I would do straight theater in Chicago and experimental sort of avant-garde black box theater, and Chicago's great. You can do that there. You can get some friends, put up a show, and the Sun-Times or the Trib will come. It's not hard to start a theater company there. But I found that when I did comedy and I messed up on stage, like if I blew a line on stage in comedy, there'd be laughter from backstage at my failure. And I found that so much healthier than if I blew a line in drama. Because you'd go backstage and people were going, "How's it going up there?" God, it sounds awfully quiet, you know? And I thought, oh, I like these people. I like these people more than these people. And I surrendered my need for importance. Do you know what I mean? I surrendered my need to have status.
For the sheer joy of hearing people laugh at what you did.
Yes, yes, it's far more important. I decided that I had to be a comedian when it was. I loved it when people laughed at me too. But a young lady went out on stage to do a blackout, which is like a 30-second scene. And it was supposed to be for the Whales. She's supposed to be in a coffee shop playing the guitar, saying, "I'd like to do a song for the Whales." And then the scene goes, the blackout goes, that she starts going, "Psh." That's her song for the Whales.
Yes.
So she goes out to do it. It's not, you know, it's not a great thing, but it's foolproof.
Yeah.
And she went out there and she forgot to say that it was for the Whales. She just said, "I'd like to do a song." And she started clicking and whistling and got silence. And we couldn't figure out why she wasn't getting the laugh. Like, this is, you never don't get a score with Whales.
Right.
And then she said, "Oh, I forgot it's for Whales." And we went up for grabs backstage. It was in Second City. I just started working there. And we were weeping and hugging each other and lying on the floor. And the audience could hear us. And she was laughing on stage. And I thought, I have to do this for a living. I have to work in something where this is almost as good as doing it right.
Well, I just think that most people I know would love the capacity to make people laugh. I mean, I was an appreciation for Johnny Apple, my friend, earlier this week. And somebody got up and said, "I do maudlin well," because they'd asked him to be funny, to remember funny stories, "but I don't do funny well." And he went on to try to be funny and to be funny reasonably well. But his basic instinct was, I can be serious. I can tell you about the greatness of something, but I can't make you laugh. I don't have that instinct. I think some people have the instinct to do this. Do you think, when you look back to being the youngest of 11, to growing up and needing to compete for attention, that humor was a way?
I don't know why humor was valued in my family, but we were a humorocracy. You know, the funny person in the room at the moment was
first of all, your father was Irish family, so there's something.
My name is French, you know, maybe. Right. We don't know. My grandfather didn't really talk about it.
You never knew whether it was Colbert?
Colbert or Colbert, you know.
What did your dad say, Colbert?
My father said Colbert, but always wanted to say Colbert. But his father didn't understand that desire and lacked the pretentious gene that I have. And didn't want him to do it, so my father, out of respect, never tried to do it. But he said to us, you know, you make up your own mind.
Yeah. And so when did you make up your mind?
On flying, well, I toyed with it, but I was flying to Northwestern in Chicago to go to theater school.
Right. Having spent 2 years at Hampton-Sydney in Virginia.
Right, exactly. And I was flying, I transferred schools. I didn't know Chicago. Nobody knew me there. And I thought, well, if I'm ever going to do it, it's going to be now. And I got bumped up to first class, and I sat next to an astronaut, actually. And
which one? Do you remember?
I think his last name was Corley, and he never flew because it was right before the shuttle blew up, and he wasn't on the shuttle. And I talked to him about it, and
Then what I should call myself, Colbert or Colbert?
Yes. And he goes, well, I think you know. And so I took off as Colbert. And
So when you got off the plane, you were
I was
Colbert.
Colbert. That was it.
Great story. Your dad died in a plane crash.
I did, yeah.
With two brothers.
Yeah.
When you were, what, 10 or 11?
I was 10.
Yeah.
In 1974.
Other than making you know that your house is a much sadder place, what impact did it have?
Oh, gosh. It was 32 years ago now, and I couldn't begin to catalog what impact it has upon you to have your father and your two nearest brothers die. My family goes Jimmy, Eddie, Mary, Billy, Margaret, Tommy, Jay, Lulu, Paul, Peter, Stephen, and Paul and Peter died. Yeah. And so then it became a gap of almost 10 years between me and
they were how old? They were
14.
Yeah, so they
and 16, and I was 10. And Dad, obviously. And I don't know. It's kind of, I've said it before, but I think it's kind of facile to say I wanted to make my mom laugh or make my mom happy. And that's not an inconsequential part of it.
Exactly.
I'm sure that was part of it, but I don't necessarily think that's what made me a comedian. I think it gave me, I certainly didn't work in school I don't think I did homework but a dozen times between 10 and 18. I started reading books incessantly, like after the funeral of Dad and the boys. I had terrible blazing headache, and I went back to my brother Ed's house. They were buried in Annapolis, and we were up in D.C., and I was staying at his house, and I went to a quiet room to try to get rid of my headache. I lay down, and there was a science fiction book on a shelf, and I just picked it off the shelf, and I read pretty much a book a day after that.
So it's been a lifelong habit.
Yes, and I learned things at school incidentally, not because I did any work. Nothing seemed important after that. And all the concerns and any threat that any teacher could, present to me seemed pretty ridiculous after they died. And so, and on one level it made me, you might say, lazy, because you need threats to have discipline, and nothing seemed threatening to me.